everybody. This week, our guest is Jeff Banister, former Major League manager of the Texas Rangers. We'll talk with Jeff in just a moment. Jeff Banister and I have been friends since he was the Pittsburgh Pirates minor league field coordinator. He's got quite the resume in the major leagues as a coach and a manager, as well as all his minor league work. Jeff, how are you doing these days?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, Howard. We're doing great. It's kind of slowed it down a little bit, doing a little college gig here until hopefully the next stop for some major league team. But Karen and I are doing great. Thanks for asking.
Jeff, as we said, you have quite the career in the minor leagues and the major leagues. But before we get to that, you had some very trying things happen to you. Number one, I believe you were in high school when you developed cancer.
Yes. Howard, that's when I was in high school, it kind of all started. I was a football player as well, and a situation where thought with just a twisted ankle from a playoff game in high school, and what eventually became a form of bone cancer in my left ankle. Wound up in the hospital for a number of months, 7 surgeries. There was a time where doctors came in and talked to my parents and me, and they were taking me into surgery, and they had to make a decision during that time whether or not they were going to amputate the leg from the knee down. So it was some trying time for a young guy.
And then you beat that. It's wonderful. All these years, you're cancer-free. But then in college, I believe, you had a devastating collision while you were catching at home plate.
I did. It was during the fall, actually. I was playing for Lee Junior College at the time, a school out of Baytown, and was not supposed to play that day. It was the last doubleheader for the fall season. However, Deacon Jones, former scout player, I believe Silver Slugger winner at one point, had contacted my coach the night before and said, "Hey, I'd like to see Jeff play a little bit more." And at the time, Howard, that was, if you'll remember, they still had the winter draft, and so it was quite possibly an opportunity for me to be drafted in the winter and things like that. And so he promised Deacon that I would catch for 5 innings, and in the 5th inning, there was runner at third base. I believe there was 1 out at the time. Fly ball, hitter hit a fly ball, shallow fly ball to right field, kind of, medium depth, I would say. One of those that in between, runner probably should have been down the line a little bit, not tagging, but he was tagging up, and my right fielder caught it flat-footed, threw the ball, sailed up the third base line a little bit, and I went to my knees I thought, I was going to catch the ball, kind of swipe tag the runner on the way by, and kind of bad move by me. I put myself right in the middle of the base path, and I went to my knees, another bad move, and ball and the runner got there about the same time. And as I'm going to try to make a tag, a runner's trying to jump over the top of me, and my old football instincts kicked in, and I tried to drive myself into the runner. And when we did, there was a collision with his knee and at the top of my head, and it jammed. The force jammed my head straight down, in which at that point in time shattered 3 vertebrae in my neck, and left me on the field with no movement, and a deep gash in the top of my head, which at the time, all the coaches and everything were more concerned about that until I could tell them that I couldn't move.
And so you couldn't move, I believe, for what, a week or 10 days?
It was, yes, it was. Once they performed the first surgery, once they got me into the hospital, it was one of those things. I was in Alvin, Texas at the time, at Nolan Ryan Field, of all places. And they took me to the ambulance took me to an emergency hospital there in Alma, small hospital. And when we got there, they explained to my parents that there wasn't a whole lot that they could do for me. They stitched my head up, but they put me back in an ambulance and took me to a hospital closer to Houston. And there wasn't much to be done the first night. Really, they put me in traction. They weren't real sure if I was going to make it through the night. And so after the first night, they came in and kind of gave my parents the prognosis where I was at, and they were going to perform surgery on me. And when they took me in surgery, they were able to relieve pressure off of my spinal cord, which they performed 2 surgeries in all. But once they relieved pressure off the spinal cord, I didn't get. I got feeling back. I did when I say that, it's not like you get everything back at once. It's there's the spinal cord has been damaged and depressed, and mine was depressed over 50%, which that's pretty devastating in itself. And so, but by the grace of God and a lot of luck and a great surgeon, they were able to get me back. And it took 7 to 10 days before I was actually really able to kind of start manipulating my arms and feet.
And then, of course, you were able to have a professional career, got to the big leagues briefly. Anything stand out? We knew you when you played for the Buffalo Bisons against the Indianapolis Indians. Before we get to that, when you look back at these 2 things, the cancer and this devastating collision, how did that shape and affect your personality, your character, your attitudes?
Well, first of all, I think in life there are so many things, Howard, that develop our resilience and grit and determination. Right? There are moments in life that I think you can track all the way back to and say, you know what, you got decisions to make. And for me, laying in the hospital bed at one point 4 months, another point, I mean, when you calculate it all up, it's probably about a year's total time between the 2 incidences that I spent in a hospital bed, in a hospital room. And there's a lot of time for, to chase demons out of the room. There's a lot of time to kind of figure out what direction you want to go in life. And I chose the pathway of, I wasn't going to ever quit on anything. I was, as long as there's breath in my lungs and, life in my body, I was going to be determined to be successful, because especially in baseball. And I tell people this all the time that, this game that I played in my mind for so many days and so many nights and kind of lonely spots in life. And it brought me back to life. It kept me alive. It kept me going, kept me determined to be something other than just ordinary. And I wasn't going to let myself just kind of waste away in that hospital bed. And so I think that's where, the motivation to do more, to never, to take, nobody was going to ever tell me no. Of course, I encouraged people to tell me no, because I just developed more drive.
Well, that's beautifully said, Jeff. When you look back at your playing career, what stands out in professional baseball?
Well, what stands out most is that I think every single night that I unied up, well, there's a quote in Pittsburgh that you've seen, and it's Clemente's quote, right? That every day he put the uniform on he's the proudest man on earth, right? And I think before I knew Clemente had that quote, that's kind of how I felt. It was a privilege to put the uniform on every night. It was a privilege to go out and play. So that part of it for me will always be in the forefront of my mind of what my playing career was. The night in Pittsburgh, which opportunity to go take my opportunity to become a big leaguer, to as it was, one at bat, one opportunity, and as I look back on that, I've been asked a number of times, would I ever want to change that? And I say no. I mean, at the time I did. As I was a little bitter when I got sent back down to Buffalo. I was a little bitter. Like, come on now, on one at bat, surely I'll go back. And as I look back, I see, you know what, it for all the things that had gone on, and how fitting that it's, you get so many few opportunities in life to do things to chase a dream, right? And so for me, for it to end that way, if that's all it was, and I think about all the things that I told myself that I was going to stand for, and I would never want to change it.
Well said, Jeff Banister. We'll have more with Jeff after these words. Jeff, before you got to the big leagues as a coach in 2011, what stands out from your years as a minor league manager, minor league field coordinator? Tell us some highlights and things that stand out from those days.
Well, I think more importantly, it's the people that I was able to learn from, Howard. That guys. Look, I have to be one of the more fortunate and blessed human beings in this game. I mean, Willie Stargell, right? Manny Sanguian, Chuck Tanner, Jim Leland, Gene Lamont, Rocky Bridges. These are names that they may not be. Some of them are household names. Some of them are not. But it's the people along the way that Joe Lynette, that took the opportunity to pour into me about, how do you impact players? How do you impact human beings? What does this game mean to the fans? How should you show up every single day? And it wasn't just the art of managing a game. You look at the landscape of today's game. And some of these managers, not to disparage any of these guys. I mean, they're doing the best they possibly can, but they're doing their best with less tools in their tool belt. My tool belt was full and filled up with a number of people, and I think about how the people that poured into me and taught me how to truly think about impacting others, changing the trajectory of a player's life, not their playing career, their life, who they are as a person. They gave me so much insight and what that means. And so, and if you track it back, I mean, Chuck Tanner, think about all the people that poured into Chuck, that all he was doing is giving away information that he learned from others to me. How far must that go back? And that's why I say I'm blessed in that regard.
Before you got the Texas Rangers managerial job in 2015, you spent 4 years as Clint Hurdle's bench coach with the Pirates. Tell us that experience and also what it meant. You were a Pirate your entire life, professional career until then. What it meant in 2013 when the Pirates got to the postseason and had their first winning season in 20 years.
Well, yeah, we'll take that one first, Howard. That's probably the 21 years of losing. Let that sink in for a little bit. 21 years of having great players come along, and we couldn't keep them, or we chose not to keep them, or whatever the dynamics were of the financials of, how can we didn't get to keep our good players. And I was proud of the players that were Pirates that had to, we traded off or couldn't sign, that had to go play for other teams. And had great success. However, listening to the rest of the industry tell us that we were irrelevant, right? That we were just a minor league team for everybody else, right? And so when that night in Chicago, when we clinched our berth into the playoffs, I didn't care about 500. That's the thing that most don't understand. I could care less about. And I kept telling them, 500 was just a stepping stone to where we really wanted to go. Pirates haven't reached that yet. It's the one thing that still haunts me is that I wanted to be there when we celebrated in the middle of the field and bring a world championship back to Pittsburgh. Unfortunately, that doesn't look like that's going to ever happen. But that night in Chicago, when we were able to celebrate, and there were some people that had been in the organization as long as I had been at that time, we just kind of looked at each other. And I still get emotional about it, because to endure 21 years of losing, to give that back to the city of Pittsburgh and the people, and you've been there, you understand the great passion that community has for their team and all their teams, right? And it was just a great feeling. Clint, what a marvelous human being, always trying to motivate and move people forward. That's a thing that I will always remember about Clint and my time there with Clint. We had such a great time together. I learned so much. Another human being that cares so much about others that it exudes all through him and outwardly when he walks in the room. And still today, as he sends out his text and emails, and the desire for him to make other people's lives better is so impactful.
I think it's very well said. You get the Texas Rangers managerial job, you leave the Pirates, and you were named manager of the year, and you had a lot of success those first few seasons there.
We did, and it was a team that needed at the time, and needed to be reminded that they were a great group of players, and that they had been successful, and that they had won. And we were able to go in and kind of connect the dots for them. We wanted, fought our way back when everybody told us that we were, in spring training. I go back to we lost Darvish in spring training at 15. We lost, 3/5 of our starting rotation, and so we were piecemealing our rotation together. We started the season with a bullpen with Neftali Feliz, who I think had blown 9 saves in the first month, if you will, 8 or 9 saves. And we won only 7 games in the first month. And I was told at the time, make sure you still have that for sale sign of that house you bought. You might want to put it back in. All the while, I was looking at a group of players, veterans and young guys, that they were hungry for somebody to tell them that it was okay, and it was okay to have the desire to win baseball games, and to celebrate it, and celebrate all the little moments inside, to play with your hair on fire. Stop worrying about the consequences or what happens, or just go out and play. Remember what it was like when you were 12 and 13 years old playing this game, and without money, you were playing for a snow cone and a candy bar at the end of the day. And that's the thing that we reinstilled in that group of players. And, I'm sitting here today, and I'm helping a group of young college players better themselves and understand that this is a challenging game. It's a cruel game. It's how you endure it, and how you don't let it beat you up. You get up the next day and try to move forward and play this game with a desire in your heart that when there are fans in the stands, and your teammates are looking at you. You play in a win, Howard. This is the magic for me. In a win, you can make your teammates and your fans proud of how you played. And in a loss, you give them hope for a better tomorrow. That's all. And if you can do that, I mean, we're in a day and age where we've gotten so technical about things. You know, we want to know about launch angles. We want to know about velo off the bat. We want to know depth of pitch. We want to know whether it was in a ball or a strike on borderline. We need to see that on TV, right? But we have forgotten that there's a heartbeat inside of every one of these players, and we have to, as coaches, reach into their soul and help them and make them believe that they're greater than what they are at any given moment, and they can overcome and withstand as long as they continue to go out and play this game the way it was designed to play. You know that. And you see it in young players. You've seen enough young players that come along and you go, you know what? He might be lesser talented and that doesn't have the great skill set, but the thing that he does have is great heart.
Jeff, beautifully said. It's wonderful spending time with you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Howard. It's been great being on here, and it's great seeing you.
We'll have more after these messages. Thanks to our guest, Jeff Banister. Next week, we'll talk to former Indianapolis Indians pitching coach, Stan Kiles. Goodbye, everybody.